All right, let's talk of these non-playoff teams from last year. Starting with the one who was contending up till the very last day, North Carolina Courage. They have added Sheridan as their goalkeeper. They added some European talent, and they've changed their head coach to a more striking focused one because they're having trouble scoring. So they understood their assignment, they knew all their weak points, and they addressed them. Good for them. Um, is that going to be enough to make them a major contender? I don't know that. I would suspect they improve a little bit, especially with the league kind of as close as it was. Like you saw it, the gap between second and ninth was 9 points. So I think contending with Gotham for that three position is definitely possible. And so, yeah, I expect a home playoff game to come to the worst stadium in this league. I don't like to throw a lot of shade, but they've been talking about them getting a new stadium for a while because they're playing out of what appears to be a soccer complex that doesn't seat all that many people, and it kind of reminds me of like kind of the bougie version of those squads in the FA Cup when they find their way in from like the fifth level and they suddenly have to host the Premier League squad, and you're watching like Aston Villa step onto what appears to be um, a park with some type of stands that have been grafted onto them. And yeah, that's kind of what I feel like when I watch games at where the Courage play. They need to get that stadium put together. There's enough rich people in the South. Somebody get on that. You do not need the government's funding to do all this. A bunch of you are rich anyway. Get this done. Okay. We good? We good. Houston. They were 10th last year, and they've added a lot of youth, a lot of talent from other leagues that aren't usually thought of highly. Like, it's not where you'd expect your big stars to come from. I would say it feels like they're taking a year to build a core, but they've been pretty much in this position for a while. So it's like, how many gap years are you going to take here before you actually start making a move? Either way, I expect them to be very much in a similar position, maybe slightly worse. But now that there's 16 teams in the league, having that gap could start looking a lot worse for you. At one point or another, you're going to have to commit, and it doesn't look like they've really got that. It feels like they don't have a plan, and they're just waiting for a plan to present itself. They're just gonna keep building young cores until they see a plan. All right, we're jumping Angel City's position to go to Utah. They were at 12th last year. Even though they weren't all that successful, you'd expect them to make big signings, but the only one they really made was Kiana Palacios from Club America, who, I do suspect she'll make some impacts here. She's already 29, so she's going to have to perform like immediately, but she scored a lot of goals for Club America. And that is what they're going to need. They're going to need to start scoring here. And I do want to see this team like make some improvements because I remember when there was a Utah team there originally, and then they like paused operations, and they promised that they would bring a team back to Utah as soon as ownership group was ready, and they've kept their word, and their fans actually stayed on and followed and waited patiently, and they deserve to see some return on that. So I hope they see some success. I don't think it's this year. Bay FC. They are in year 3 now. made playoffs opening year. A lot of that expansion success, that Golden Knight syndrome, or Seattle Kraken syndrome, actually. But much like the Kraken, there was a sophomore slump, and they plummeted. All the close games they were finding themselves winning in year one, they were not doing it in year two. And so they've gone big, signing Claire Hutton for over $1 million. They want to be a serious contender. They've got an Italian player on loan at least for the next 6 months. So they're trying to make an impact. That said, just knowing that you have a player on loan, that means you're going to try to front load your points. Or you're hoping everyone figures it out in that time frame. But yeah, I would say if Bay FC is not moving at a good clip very quickly, it should be reasonable to assume that they're going to have a rough year. If they're going to succeed, it's going to be really quick. Like by the end of, I would say by tax day, you should have a pretty good idea of whether this team's going to contend or not, just by watching their first few games. In any case, yeah, good times there. All right, last up, Chicago Stars. They were the Wooden Spoon winners last year. Only 3 wins, a lot of draws. And they are getting a player back from maternity leave at some undisclosed point in the future. That is the optimism for this team. Their team otherwise is stagnating, not a lot of movement, gave up a star player, and they moved because their lease ran out. They are moving to Northwestern University's stadium, which has a capacity drop of nearly half. So, I mean, sorry. Credit to their fan base. They remain optimistic, remain strong. Someone at an ownership group's got to share their optimism. This feels like we're watching a team that feels content to just continue existing and vibing until someone who actually wants to own the team comes in. Maybe that's what's happening. But yeah, this feels insulting to the fans, honestly. I'm hoping that the players step up on the fans' behalf because management clearly ain't. All right, we will talk about the expansions in the last one here as well as Angel City themselves. So look forward to that. One more moment.